So you started on your decluttering journey. Maybe you've even watched my Swedish Death Cleaning video, and things are going great. You've started evaluating the items in your home and going through them one by one. Perhaps you've sold, donated, or otherwise disposed of things, and your house is looking much cleaner. You're much less stressed, and you can already see the benefits of having less things. But something else is going on. Very slowly, imperceptibly, and maybe even mysteriously, there's another pile of stuff growing in your house. Suddenly, things don't seem to be reducing as quickly as they did when you first started decluttering. So what's going on here? Well, you might have a case of unconscious accumulation, and I might just be able to help with that. Hi, I'm Rinny and I'm living the simple life in rural Tasmania. If you're interested in cute animals, DIY, or just simplifying your life a little bit, then I'd love it if you subscribe and maybe hit the notification button too, so that you don't miss any of my new videos. Old habits can be hard to break, and that also applies to the way that we view our possessions and how we acquire them. It's often ingrained in us in our formative years. If we grew up in an environment of scarcity, then we may be more likely to take every opportunity to acquire new things and have lots of stuff around us. There's nothing wrong with this, but it does help to recognize it when you are endeavoring to simplify your life and reduce your possessions. If you find the volume of stuff coming into your life is actually exceeding the things that are leaving, or maybe even just matching it, then you might want to look at the causes. Often just observing your own patterns of behavior is enough, but I'd like to give you some practical actions that you can take that may help. Before we get into this video, you may have already watched my Swedish Death Cleaning video. It was very popular, and if you haven't watched it, the link is in the description. You can watch that after this one. There were a lot of comments on that video, and people shared their own personal stories with me and with everybody else, and I learned a lot. I loved the collective wisdom that is there now, so if you want to have a read through those comments, that might help too. As always, with this video, please feel free to leave a comment, and perhaps we can keep learning from each other too. In this video, I've compiled a list of 10 tips that may help you to get back on track and stop accumulating new stuff so that you can resume your decluttering journey with ease. And if you watch until the end of this video, I'll share with you a bonus tip that has really helped me personally on my decluttering journey, and it's all about emotions. So let's get started. Tip number 1, think. When adding new items to your household, stop and take a moment to ask yourself some questions. Do I really need this? Do I already have an item that will serve the same function? Often items will serve a number of purposes, so check this first before acquiring something new. For example, I once had several kitchen appliances that were all capable of blending. I kept the one that blended and also had other functions too. Where will it go? Where will I store it? This is particularly valid for larger items. If you need to make room for something, then do you really need it? How often will I use it? Will I use it every day, every week, once every few months, once a year? If you're not going to use it very often, then you probably don't need to buy it. You could borrow it instead, and there's more about that later on. Do I already have a similar item? Check your existing inventory. This can happen when you are starting your decluttering journey and you don't really know what you have. You may be more inclined to make repeat purchases for things that you already own, just because you can't keep track of all of your stuff. Trust me, this has happened to me. Tip number 2, learn to say no. This is particularly hard for people like me who are people pleasers. I find it very difficult to say no to somebody. I feel like I might deeply offend them if I do. This is getting better as I get older, but it does take practice to learn to say no. I'm specifically referring here to people who want you to take on their items, either to store or to give them to you. There are 3 scenarios that I want to talk about here. Scenario 1, when somebody is doing their own decluttering. In this scenario, people might want to give you their own possessions because they're trying to get rid of them themselves. This is quite an easy one because you can tell them that you are in a stage of your life where you're also decluttering, And perhaps this will start a conversation between you. And you can share tips about decluttering, maybe share videos, including mine, and you may even have a new decluttering buddy and you can work together on it. Scenario 2. When a loved one passes on and the household possessions are being divided. Again, it's okay to refuse. I understand that this is a little bit harder because there are emotions involved and family members. You can just explain that you have cherished memories of that person that live independently of the possessions that they had. Everybody's memories are personal, so it's inappropriate for somebody else to tell you how you should remember somebody. In the case of photographs, I recommend taking digital images of them so that you can keep them on a computer somewhere instead of in a big dusty storage box. This also allows you to share those images with other members of the family. In fact, this scenario is a really good way to start thinking about Swedish death cleaning because I know that I don't want all of my family and friends to have to go through mountains of stuff after I'm gone. Scenario number 3. There's a family member or close friend, often it's one of your children, who wants you to store their stuff at your house. Often in this scenario, somebody just has a really tiny apartment or house, or they're in a transient period of their life and they just need somewhere to put all of their stuff. This is the perfect time to preach the value of minimalism and maybe talk about getting rid of some of it. Encourage them to scrutinize their inventory and really think about reducing it. If they can't live with all of their stuff, then they need to realize that they probably have too much, and storing it with you is not going to help that. They probably have things that they don't need on a regular basis, and maybe a lot of it is nostalgic. Encourage them to have a really good look at it before deciding whether it's worth spending the money on a storage unit. Tip number 3, gifts. Gifts. This is probably one of the hardest parts of decluttering. The guilt, the obligation, the awkwardness. Let's see if we can break this down. Firstly, and most importantly, lay the groundwork for avoiding the gifting situation in the first place. This can be done by making it really clear to family and friends that you are decluttering and you're in that phase of your life where you just don't want or need any gifts. Instead, when occasions arise, you would prefer things like experiences or just kind deeds from people. So this doesn't mean no gifts at all, it just means gifting alternatives that aren't physical items. It could even mean charitable donations. You can write on invitations to events that you really don't want any gifts at all, and you can also have the name of a charity on there if people really feel like they need to do something. But otherwise, I think that a kind deed goes a really long way as a gift. But what if, despite all of this, people still give you gifts? What do you do then? Well, you have two options. You can either accept it or refuse it. Refusal. Personally, I don't believe that there is any polite way to refuse a gift. You may disagree with me here, and I really look forward to seeing your thoughts in the comments. But for me, the best way I can think of is to say something like, look, I really appreciate the thought, but I just can't possibly accept it. I don't really think that you need to give an explanation. That should just be enough to say that. And I still think that that would actually be offending to the person that gave you the gift. So you could just accept the gift. I mean, the person went to all the trouble of thinking about you and then finding something that they thought that you might like and giving it to you. Somebody in the Swedish Death Cleaning video, I don't remember who, made the comment that your obligation to the gift and to the giver ends when you thank them for the gift. And I guess that's true. In other words, you're not obligated to keep the gift. So perhaps you keep it for a while and then get rid of it, or maybe you return it to the store or give it to somebody else. I think that the person giving you the gift would probably not want you to feel guilty or obligated about it. But I guess that kind of depends on the reasoning and the motivation behind the gift as well. I don't know, it's a tricky social situation, and I'm autistic, so I'm not good at social situations at the best of times. So let me know what you think in the comments. What is the solution to this? In fact, I have thoughts on gift culture, and I have been spending a lot of time lately writing a really long essay about it, and I'm going to be making that into a video. I'm currently working on that, so subscribe to my channel and you will see this video probably next up. Tip number 4, online shopping. I'm addressing this issue separately to a bricks and mortar physical store because I feel that online shopping is a little more prone to impulse buying. So here are my tips for online shopping. Number 1, unsubscribe from marketing materials in your email. So these emails are designed to make you click on them and purchase things that maybe you wouldn't normally purchase. They'll notify you of sales, and this can be really tempting. So the best thing I find to do is just go down to the bottom of the email and click unsubscribe. It will actually declutter your inbox too. Number 2, use a wish list or a watch list, sometimes called my favorites, to add things to when you're browsing around on online shops. So just add them to that list, and it's like shopping, but you're not actually checking out. Then you can go back to that list after a while and just review what you've put in there. Often I find that I'm no longer interested in those items anymore, so I just don't end up buying them. But it is a good way to kind of virtually window shop, if you like. Tip number 3, delay checking out. This is kind of a step further to adding items to your wish list. You might actually be at the stage where you've decided you're going to buy it. So just delay that for a little while, maybe a day or maybe 2 days, and you might find that again, you won't want to buy it. If you just delay that urge to acquire something, that might help. And as an added bonus, a lot of places will send you discount offers if you haven't checked out immediately. And who doesn't love a bargain? Tip number 5, challenge yourself to a no-buy time period. This can sometimes be a really difficult goal to start off with, which is why it's a good idea to start small. So maybe go for a no-buy week, then a no-buy month, and a no-buy season, and work your way up to a no-buy year. What you can do is mark the days off on a calendar and maybe even set yourself little challenges. So if you make it to the end of the week and you haven't bought anything, then maybe treat yourself to a nice dinner out somewhere. And this will get you far along to extending the time period where you don't buy anything. This will gradually change your mindset, and trust me, it will become easier. Tip number 6, repair. If you have broken items around the house, consider if they can be repaired, rather than going out and buying a new item. You may have to take it to a specialist repairer, or maybe you have a friend who's really handy and can repair things, in which case that's fantastic. Or you can actually repair it yourself. And believe it or not, there are more things than you can think of that you can repair yourself. All you need is, well, YouTube. There are tons of videos on YouTube that will tell you how to repair everyday household items. One example I can think of is my washing basket. I have one of those big plastic washing baskets, and I use it just to put my clothes into and transfer them to the dryer or the clothesline. One day my mum and dad were staying with us, and my dad noticed that the handle was split. I'd been putting up with it for a while and intending to get a new basket, but Dad actually repaired it. And guess what he did? He got a section of old hose and actually made a handle with it and repaired the split. It didn't look all that good, it wasn't very pretty, but it's just a washing basket, so who cares? And it means that I didn't have to go and buy a new one. I think it's fun thinking of inventive ways that you can repair things around the house. And if you have any ideas, then please share them in the comments with me. Tip number 7, borrowing. If you need an item for just one job that you wouldn't normally do, consider borrowing that item from somebody. A recent example that happened to me was that I had some wallpaper that needed stripping in my house, and I really needed a wallpaper steamer to make the job a little bit easier and faster. I did consider buying one, and I looked around and they're quite expensive, so I put it out there on my Facebook page, and lo and behold, one of my friends who lives locally had a wallpaper steamer that she was more than happy to lend to me. So I went to her house, picked it up, used it for a couple of days, got the job done, and I returned it to her all nice and clean with a home-baked plate of cookies. There are also lots of services around that offer items for rent. such as tools around the house and the garden, cleaning machines, toys, clothing, and of course there are libraries. Who doesn't love a library? And remember to be a good borrower. So always return items on time, make sure that they're in really good condition when you return them, and if it's somebody you know that's lent you an item, maybe make them a little gift or do something nice for them as well. That way, when you need something in the future, people will be more inclined to lend you something. Tip number 8, pay for it. And I don't just mean with money. I mean that every time you want to acquire something new, pay for it with items that are already in your home. This means that you'll need to go through the items that you already have and get rid of 3 of them, say, to start with. So for every item coming in, 3 items need to go out. So this will give you a net reduction in your inventory of 2 items. And you can even go further than this. You can have it so that for every item coming in, you get rid of 5 items. And this will really progress you on your decluttering journey and make sure that you're not accumulating more things. Tip number 9, repurpose. Do you need an item to do a specific task? Maybe you already have an item that can perform that function. I'll use my washing basket again as an example. Not only do I use it for putting clothes into, but I also use it as a temporary receptacle for decluttering. I've used it as a shopping basket. I've used it as a carry-all to take to the beach. It really is a multi-function item, and I don't need to purchase things for those extra jobs. Other examples I can think of around the home are having a nice baking dish that you can cook in, but is also really suitable as a serving platter. I have a fruit basket that I use as a bread basket when people come for dinner. Of course, I take the fruit out first. I also use a pretty folded sheet as a table runner instead of buying an actual table runner. You can also reuse old items to perform a totally new task. For example, an old toothbrush can be used to clean hard to reach places in your bathroom. You can use old pillowcases as garment covers. Just cut a hole in the top and slip it over your coat hanger in your wardrobe. Glass jars make really good tidying receptacles, and an old pair of tights makes an excellent duster. So just look around your house and see what you can repurpose. Tip number 10, buying repeat items. Sometimes you buy something and then when you get it home, you realize that you already have that item. This can happen when you're in the beginning of your decluttering journey because you have so much stuff, you don't really know what you have, and so you do tend to repurchase things. Don't worry, this will get easier as your items reduce. In the meantime, ask yourself the questions from tip number 1 to help prevent this. This can also happen, believe it or not, with items that you've already gotten rid of. You've determined that you don't need it, but then you've gone and bought it again, only not to need it again or never to use it. I know it sounds strange, and it is a really frustrating cycle. I didn't even know I was doing it until I started on my decluttering journey. It might help you to really look at those items that you are repeatedly purchasing. Perhaps they're aspirational items. In other words, are you buying them from some perceived sense of what your lifestyle could be or what you want it to be, but then in actual reality, it just doesn't fit? For example, I used to keep purchasing high-heeled shoes, thinking that I would wear them to some nice occasion when I'm all dressed up. But in reality, whenever those occasions come along, I tend to choose more comfortable shoes. I'm just, I guess, at the age where I can't tolerate being uncomfortable when I'm out and about. And so for me, high-heeled shoes are really something that I never wear. But yet I did keep buying them. I don't do it anymore because now I've realized that I was buying them for an aspirational sense of my lifestyle that doesn't actually exist. Well, you've watched this far in the video and thank you very much. And as a little reward, I would like to give you my bonus tip that has really helped me in my decluttering journey. Bonus tip: how are you feeling? I've noticed that when I purchase things, it usually coincides with certain feelings that I'm having at the time. For example, for me, it's when I'm feeling anxious or really low in self-confidence. I tend to purchase things when I'm in these emotional states. It could be insecurities about my appearance, my home, or maybe I'm just feeling like I'm not a very capable person. Either way, it does lead to shopping. So next time you feel yourself reaching for your credit card, ask yourself how you're feeling. Are you sad, anxious, insecure, or maybe even particularly joyful? It really helps to notice the patterns of your emotions and how it coincides with your spending habits. This means that when you're in those emotional states, you may be able to avoid shopping and avoid accumulating extra stuff that you actually don't need. Remember, we're all different and there is nothing wrong with you if you like to surround yourself with lots of possessions. If this makes you happy and you can afford it, then please carry on. You do you. You are doing great. I want to make it clear that I am not telling anybody what to do or what they should do. I'm just offering an alternative point of view and maybe getting you to look at things a little differently. Chances are, if you're watching this video, then you've been thinking about simplifying your life as well. For me personally, decluttering has been a really transformative experience. I'm much less stressed, I'm a much happier person, my life is more simple, and I can really see the benefits of having less. I feel like I can really understand what's important in life, and it's not stuff. For me, having less has been freeing, and in more ways than just freeing up space in my house. It's been quite profound, and I want to share that feeling with other people and maybe even make a difference in somebody else's life. So what do you think? Have you found yourself unconsciously accumulating? If so, did any of these tips help? What actions can you put into place today? As always, you know I'd love to hear from you in the comments. It is my favorite part. And if you found today's video of value, then please like and maybe share it with a friend who might benefit as well. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button so that you don't miss any of my new videos in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.